It's Sunday, February 9, 2025, and welcome to LCJ Live. Super Bowl 49 is happening tonight. Fly, Eagles, fly on the road to victory. That is right. The Eagles face off against the Chiefs. Once again, it's a rematch. We saw it 2 years ago. It should have been an Eagles victory. It's going to be an Eagles victory tonight. Fly, Eagles, fly. The game starts at 6:30 Eastern on Fox, followed by the season premiere of The Floor, hosted by Rob Lowe. I'm going to stay up for that probably too. But these Eagles got to win this. Second Super Bowl on the line. They got to get the Lombardi Trophy. It's going to be a good game. It's going to be a fun game. There's some movie ads within it. I'll have some coverage of that. I know there's, I guess, a crypto ad for Superman, Crypto the dog, during the Puppy Bowl today, which is that's a clever tie-in. And the big game's going to have lots of fun ads, lots of fun things happening. Super Bowl 49. It's going to be the Eagles. It is. We'll talk more about that. I saw Paddington in Peru yesterday. I'll share some thoughts on that, plus some box office prediction analysis on that, which you may find surprising. There's a story that goes along with it. We'll talk about that and more. Captain America comes out Friday as well. We'll get to that. As always, if you're watching it live on YouTube, thank you. Send in your questions and your comments. Let's get to the box office. Number one, for a second weekend in a row, is Dogman with 13.7 million. That's a big drop from the 36 million last weekend. But Super Bowl weekend is never typically a gigantic weekend for movies. And you'll see that reflected in the rest of the box office this weekend. But still, Dogman with another win for DreamWorks and Universal, 13.7. Dogman is up to $54.1 million total. It may slow down its chances now at 100 million unless it rebounds next weekend, though Paddington in Peru is competition. But a lot of kids have school off starting Friday into the whole following week for President's Week. So a lot of kids will be going to see both of those movies, along with some of the other family films that are still in the top 10 or top 5 this weekend. So a lot happening with family movies in the theaters. When it comes to the two new romance-themed movies that opened up this weekend, neither performed well. Number two is Hard Eyes with $8.5 million. Hard Eyes is the horror thriller comedy romance. Only $8.5 million. That's less than what Companion did last weekend, but Companion had a big fall. We'll get to that. Hard Eyes from Sony Screen Gems. And then you have Love Hurts, and this has got to hurt for them. Only $5.8 million for the Universal romance action comedy starring Oscar winners Ke Kwan and Ariana DeBose. Only 5.8. That is low. And if it wasn't a Super Bowl weekend, that might have opened in 4th, 5th, 6th place. 5.8 is not very strong. Number 4 this weekend is Mufasa, the Lion King. It added 3.9 million. Mufasa has passed Sonic 3, totaling $235.2 million for Disney. I didn't see Hard Eyes or Love Hurts. I have no interest in seeing either of them, but I did see Paddington in Peru yesterday. We'll talk about that in a minute. Number 5 is Companion. Big drop from 9.3 million last weekend down to just $3 million this weekend in 5th. It is up to 15.5 for Warner Brothers, and it will probably be on digital and then Max pretty quickly. Number 6, basically a tie with Companion. One of Them Days, which continues to do pretty well, added $3 million. It is at $39.4 million for Sony Screen Gems. So TriStar, I believe it's TriStar. Yes, I think so. I didn't see One of Them Days. I may catch up on it. But look at this, doing really well for Sony. They're happy about that. Not as happy with Hard Eyes, and then we'll see what Paddington does. But One of Them Days performing well. Number 7 this weekend. Also a Sony release, a Sony Pictures Classics film. Becoming Led-Zeppelin, the documentary on Led Zeppelin, which only opened in 369 IMAX theaters, did $2.6 million this weekend. That's a $7,000 average. Good enough for 7th place, tying with Lionsgate's Flight Risk, which added $2.6 million. It's at 25.2. I think Sony Classics is like, wow, today. They're thrilled with this. I'm not sure they expected it to open in the top 10, but Becoming Led Zeppelin, which then goes to regular format theaters starting this weekend. I'll probably check it out at some point. There you go. In the top 10, number 7 this weekend. 8, as I said, is Flight Risk. 9 is Sonic the Hedgehog 3, which added 1.8 million. It's at 233.1 for Paramount. Again, as I mentioned, just surpassed now by Mufasa the Lion King. It was Sonic with that big open, and then they were sort of neck and neck the rest of the way, and now Mufasa has made more money than Sonic. But for Disney as well, rounding out your top 10 this weekend, is Moana 2, which added $1.5 million. It is at $456.1 million. A Complete Unknown, which got shut out of the Critics' Choice Awards the other night, which is unfortunate, added $1.2 million this weekend. It's at $69 million. One of the 5 or 6 biggest Searchlight movies of all time. Den of Thieves 2 Pantera added $600,000. It's at $35.6 for Lionsgate. The Brutalist, Best Actor winner, Adrian Brody at Critics' Choice the other night, added $914,000. It's at $13.7 million for A24. Parthenope, the new Paolo Sorrentino movie. I Love Youth. The Hand of God was also very good. I'm looking forward to seeing this hopefully in the next couple weeks. Parthenope opened to $32,000 in 4 theaters, $8,000 per screen average. And the re-release of Parasite in IMAX, going up against Led-Zeppelin, $326,000 in about 193 IMAX theaters. Fanimator 101, Dogman rules again, and I can't wait to see Looney Tunes and Night of the Zobocalypse next. As I wrote on social media the other day, new release dates involved for some of these animated films. Feb 28 is now A Sloth Story. March 7 is Night of the Zobocalypse. And March 14 is The Day the Earth Blew Up, a Looney Tunes movie. I've seen all 3 of those films, and I'll have coverage and more things coming up over the coming weeks. We don't have the money for Armand, which is the IFC Films release. Saw it a couple months ago, did not care for it. That opened officially in a few theaters. And Bring Them Down with Barry Keoghan, don't have the money yet on that. Speaking of Parasite, 5 years ago today, this very day, this very Sunday, it was Oscar Sunday, February 9, 2020, and Parasite won Best Picture at the Academy Awards, which it absolutely deserved. It was the second best movie that year, in my opinion, behind Wild Rose, which didn't get a lot of awards play, so Parasite was my favorite of the whole award season, besides Wild Rose, and it deserved that Best Picture win. 5 years ago today. Remember, it was the earliest Oscars in terms of the calendar year ever, Feb 9. And then we had COVID and the coronavirus, the shutdown, the lockdown, all of that. You know, imagine if that Oscar ceremony was supposed to be even 2, 3, 4 weeks later. We may not have had an Oscars for quite some time, or an at-home Oscars. It would have been very interesting and very different if it was, delayed significantly, depending on the calendar year that year. It just happened to be that the Oscars wanted to go as early as possible, Feb 9 in 2020. And then we had everything with COVID starting a couple weeks later. But 5 years ago today, one of the Best Picture wins in recent memory for Parasite at the Academy Awards. The Oscars is 3 weeks from today, March 2. 3 weeks to go in this crazy award season, this unpredictable award season. Last night, the Annie Awards with The Wild Robot picking up many wins, Flow with a couple, and they're going to battle it out. Wild Robot won Critics' Choice as well on Friday night, and Flow won the Golden Globe. So now they split the Annies. The BAFTAs will be interesting. Could they actually give it to Wallace and Gromit, Vengeance Most Foul, and shake things up? We'll have to see what's going to happen. The Producers Guild of America award went to The Wild Robot as well last night. So this award season, and speaking of animated short films, animation at the Oscar nominations and at the Oscar ceremony, we have the Oscar-nominated animated short films coming to theaters this Friday. I always recommend you check them out. It's a good group of 5. I've spoken via email, correspondences, email Q&As with the makers, the directors of all 5 of the nominated shorts. All those Q&As are at animationscoop.com. Always great to see these shorts in theaters. The live action and documentary ones are in theaters as well. So I highly recommend you check those out. Speaking of the award season, Anora, your Best Picture Critics' Choice winner the other night, as well as the DGA winner last night for Sean Baker, and the PGA winner, the Producers Guild, the Directors Guild, and Critics' Choice, all give it to Anora. And Anora, The first time a Critics' Choice, the Best Picture winner, and it's the only thing it won the entire night. Pete Crooks, Anora is going to peak at the perfect time. Look at what's happening. Look at Anora, which is now emerging maybe as the new Best Picture frontrunner. It may not be Amelia Perez anymore. It may not be The Brutalist. There was buzz that A Complete Unknown could find its way, but I'm not sure. BAFTAs will be interesting. A Complete Unknown is making some money overseas, but I don't know. Conclave's still sort of in the mix. Wicked, with that John M. Chu Best Director win the other night at Critics' Choice, and he's not up for the Oscar. Wicked could still find a way to win the SAG Award for Best Ensemble, and then go on to win Best Picture of the Year. There is a path for that. The SAG Awards is 2 weeks from today. The BAFTA Awards is next Sunday, so we'll see how the rest of this award season goes, but there's a lot of different possibilities for several different films. Captain America, Brave New World opens this weekend along with Paddington in Peru. I think Captain America will do well. It's got to do at least 100 million. If it can do 100 in that 3-day, Disney will be thrilled. If it can do it in that 4-day, they'll take it, but really, you want to see this do 100 million in that 3-day. Pete Crooks says Anora certainly deserves the prize. I like The Brutalist as well. I will disagree with you. I did not care for Anora, and I didn't love The Brutalist. My favorite of this year's Best Picture Oscar nominees is A Complete Unknown. Also out this weekend, Paddington, we'll get to that in a second. The Gorge, which is on Apple TV+. I'm going to check that out. Anya Taylor-Joy and Miles Teller. Starting Tuesday on Netflix, The Witcher, Sirens of the Deep. My Animation Scoop Q&A with the director of that film is at animationscoop.com. Also on Peacock this week, the new Bridget Jones movie, Bridget Jones Mad About the Boy. I watched the first Bridget Jones a couple months ago, and I hated it. I don't even know if I'm going to watch this new one because I hated the first one so much. I do want to mention a happy 70th birthday to Jerry Beck, my boss at Animation Scoop, animation legend. Helped put on the Annie Awards last night. Happy birthday, Jerry Beck, the big 7-0. Congratulations on another great year for animation, your work in animation, having me be a part of Animation Scoop. Happy birthday, Jerry Beck. And now let's talk about Paddington in Peru. Pete wants to know my connection to the Eagles, lifelong Eagles fan. Fly, Eagles, fly. Let's talk about Paddington in Peru. So I saw it yesterday, and it's not the quality of what the first two are. I interviewed Dougal Wilson, and he does some nice things with the film. There's energy and there's humor, especially for the young kids going to see this, and there's heart between Paddington and Aunt Lucy. It's not as gentle of an experience as the first two Paddington films. It's not. I still think the first Paddington is the best of the three, then Paddington 2. Many people consider Paddington 2 the greatest film of all time. I don't, but I like it a lot. But this new Paddington in Peru, if you're a diehard fan of the first two, you have to go in knowing that we have a new director and a different vision and a different way this franchise is now going. This is more of an adventure film. Paddington is almost the straight man, and there are jokes with many of the other human supporting characters, and he's delivering the straight lines, and they're doing the punchlines. I mean, it's different. It's some wacky adventure stuff. It's comedy. It's giving Antonio Banderas and Olivia Colman cutesy humor, even a little different than what Hugh Grant did in Paddington 2. So it's a different vibe. It's a different atmosphere. There's a lot of visual effects that are cool. There's some fun moments, but it's not the magic and the impact and like I said, the gentle nature of what we got from those first two Paddington films. It is bigger in scale. Obviously, they go to Peru looking for Aunt Lucy, and they're involved in hijinks and race against the clock type situations, which I guess there were in the other two films as well in London, but there was something about those first two where you go, oh, here's the charm, here's the magic, here's the magic with the Paddington character. He doesn't totally get lost in the story, but it's not a prominent Paddington picture about Paddington himself. There's a lot with the parents, Hugh Bonneville and now Emily Mortimer taking over for Sally Hawkins. And it's not to the quality of what the first two are. It's not a disaster, but anyone who says this is matching the level of the first two Paddingtons, no, no, it's not quite there. Again, not horrible. Young kids will probably like it more than anybody else because of the energy, the slapstick nature, some fun moments, the zaniness, the adventure sort of scale. And I will say, because of how unpredictable in nature the vibe is, you don't exactly know what's going to happen because really anything can happen. Olivia Colman breaks out into song at one point early on, and then you sort of get a vibe of, okay, anything goes, and you're not entirely sure what direction it's going to go in, but does it all feel right? And that's what you sort of have to wrestle with a little bit. But I'll tell you this quick story when it comes to what I think the box office is going to be. I was in Los Angeles in January 2018 for the Critics' Choice Awards. The first Paddington movie, which came out in 2015, was a Weinstein Company release. The second film was a Warner Brothers release. This third film is a Sony Columbia release in North America. So I'm in LA in January of 2018 for Critics' Choice and getting ready to fly home, and my flight gets canceled. So I'm stuck in LA for another night. And so I say, okay, I'm going to go see Paddington 2. There's a theater nearby. I'll go see Paddington 2. I was going to catch up on it once I got home, but I'll go see Paddington 2. So I find the theater. I don't remember exactly what part of town it was, but inside in these lobbies, these huge displays and huge posters, gigantic, high up on the wall. They'd need all this equipment to get up there and put the giant Paddington 2 poster up, which they did, and I took a photo of it from overhead. And so I get into the theater for Paddington 2. It's the Friday night, about 7:30 showing. Kids have school off on Monday for Martin Luther King Jr. Day, and I'm thinking, all right, this could be pretty crowded. The first film did $76.5 million domestically. People love the first one. They can't wait for this one. The reviews have been good. It's made all this money overseas. So I'm looking around, and the movie's starting, and there's like 20 people there. And I go, wow, this might not do well this weekend. And it only did $11 million. It made another $4.5 to $5 million on Monday with kids off of school, but still, that Friday through Sunday was only $11 million. And I got that vibe from there only being about 20 people in Los Angeles on the Friday night to see Paddington 2. It only totaled $40 million domestically, and then went on to have this greatest movie of all time status. Now, Paddington in Peru has already made $104 million overseas. But yesterday, I'm at the screening of Paddington in Peru, and I'm looking around, and the movie is starting, and there's only about 20 people in the theater. Now, I wasn't in Los Angeles yesterday, but still, I'm looking around going, wow, there's only 20 people here again. There was a family next to me who had just found out that the screening was happening. They changed their whole schedule because they loved the first two and these young kids, and they were into some of the movie. They liked it enough, and they decided, and then there were a couple other families, and that was it. There were 20 people again. It was deja vu, 7 years later. So to that I say, maybe Paddington in Peru only makes $11 million in its opening weekend. Then it'll make some more money with kids off of school that whole next week, but still, it may not do more than the 15 to 20 million. I thought it was going to do more than that. I thought the film was going to be a little better. And I thought it could do an opening weekend of more than 20 million. And maybe it will, because these were sneak previews and maybe not a lot of people knew about it. It was a Saturday at 1 o'clock. If you knew about it and you're a Paddington fan, you should have gone if you wanted to see it early yesterday. But so a little different than the Friday night. And again, I wasn't in Los Angeles this time, but still, I was a little surprised that there were only about 20 people there yesterday. So, with that said, I'm lowering my prediction for Paddington in Peru, and it may only do $11 million this weekend up against Captain America, which is going to go for 100. We'll see what happens. Sony Columbia doesn't have a lot of movies this year. They showed the trailer yesterday, the only trailer for Karate Kid Legends, which opens May 30, and as of now, that's the next Sony Columbia film after Paddington in Peru. There's nothing in between. So they need all their films this year, which include another 28 Years Later movie, an Anaconda at Christmas, this, Karate Kid, a couple other things. They need all of them to do really well. So they're hoping for big things for Paddington and Peru. We will see what happens. If you still want my conversation with Duca Wilson, the director of Paddington in Peru, go to lcj.podbean.com. He talks about a lot of the visuals and the interesting aspects that went into working with Ben Whishaw and making the visual aspect come to life, which is probably the most interesting thing about Paddington in Peru. So if you want that conversation, go there, as well as animationscoop.com, lights-camera-jackson.com in the podcast section. If you're watching here on YouTube, thank you. Subscribe to the channel. Like this video. Turn on your notifications. We're live every Sunday at noon Eastern for LCJ Live. As always, follow me on X at LCJ Reviews and Instagram at LightsCamJackson. When we're back here next Sunday, we'll take a look at that Paddington and Captain America box office. We will preview movies coming out for the 21st, including The Monkey and more. And the BAFTA Awards, we'll preview how that's going to go, and more award season news, headlines, interviews, review analysis, all that. Fly, Eagles, fly. Enjoy the Super Bowl. Go Birds. Have a great Super Bowl Sunday, and I'll see you next time on LCJ Live. Bye-bye.